All right, everybody. Adam back with another episode of the Bowhunter Chronicles podcast. John has left for Florida, so he's down there chasing wahoo once again, and we'll hear about that here in a couple of weeks as he returns to us. But today we're going to talk a little bit of conservation, and kind of like what we can do as hunters for ourselves. There's so much infighting, and we're here with Bowhunter Chronicles, right? And so we're like, we don't like crossbows, the air bow is the devil, which I still won't. I'll still say that the air bow is the devil. But rifle hunters and all this stuff, and there is a lot of infighting, public versus private, all of those things. And the bigger picture is like, what are we doing to keep the ability to hunt? And so I had John Stallone is our guest, and he is with a bunch of different things. We'll let him introduce himself, but we're going to be talking about the Howl For Wildlife organization. But he had reached out to me and he said, and I quote, "I'm reaching out to all of the well-respected podcasts." So I don't know where we fell on that, because I think that I knew he was lying. So I had to do a little bit of get a little backstory on that before we had him on. But I had seen something pop up through Andy May sharing Howl For Wildlife. So I clicked on it, and it's very intuitive, and it seemed like very legitimate. It did not seem like it was something that anyone had anything to gain from it. It looked like it was a very wholesome, like very focused on hunter rights. And as I started to talk to John, it turns out that he was the one that was behind it. That wasn't what the lead was. It was like, hey, if you want somebody to come on and talk about conservation, I'd be happy to do that. So, John, how are you doing today? And how was that intro kind of like what we're talking about today?
The intro is spot on. So I'm doing great, by the way. And the reason why I put in well-respected podcast, and I wasn't lying. I literally went and listened to at least one episode, or at least part of a few episodes of everybody. And it was more about how well they were produced and how they presented themselves. So I did research on you before I did contact you, just so you know. Yeah, but I didn't. I definitely didn't look into your how your viewers perceive you.
Yeah,
I didn't poll people. That's for sure. But yeah, I wanted to make sure that you, that you as a person and the way you ran things fell in line with what Hal's doing.
Okay, so let's get a little bit of a backstory on you, because this isn't like all that you do by any means.
No, I wish it was.
My
life would be a lot simpler. I mean, I've been a hunter since I'm 5 years old. I took my first deer with my dad at 5. I am a father of 3. I'm a husband. I own a construction company in Arizona, but I also am an outfitter out here. I'm an outfitter in South Dakota. I own the Hunting Channel online. Not everybody knows that. I was in outdoor TV for about 12 years, having my own TV show. I've been podcasting. I have a podcast still, Days in the Wild podcast. And I've been podcasting for almost 14 years. Before podcasting was a very popular thing and everybody had one. Yeah, I've been paid in some way, shape, or form since like 2001 in the industry. I've been a writer. I've written a couple different books. I got a book called The Whitetail Hunter's Blueprint. I have another one called The Secrets of Hunting Western Game. I'm originally from New York. I lived there till I was 16, started bow hunting at 13. Then I moved to Arizona and got into Western hunting, but I still go back to New York. I hunt all over the Midwest and had the opportunity to take whitetail in 16 different states. So I've been around.
And so what, from that perspective, like what is the crux behind like the conservation or the need to do this? It seems like you've got 150 other things that you've got going on,
Right.
and everybody's time is so limited. It's like this, and as we'll get into it, it seems for me, for the layman, and for probably most of the listeners, unless somebody contacts you or you're part of we had talked about previously, like the Michigan Bowhunters Association is really good, like I say, about the airbow stuff, about trying to create separate seasons and keep the season length and things for bow hunters different or reasonable. But unless someone comes to you with that, we end up saying, well, it's too hard, or they're not going to listen to me, or we're just complaining amongst each other. So why or how did this all come about? Like, why take this project on?
Well, I mean, for me, it started a long time ago. I'm 46, probably a bit older than you, and I've seen how hunting has changed over the years, and the opportunities are, especially out here in the West. I don't, Michigan, back east, not so much. You could still go to, you could still go to the store and purchase your hunting license. I think where you guys being in the Midwest or being back east, I think the problem is access versus opportunity, which really it's the same thing. I mean, if you can't access a place to go hunting, you don't have the opportunity, right? But the tags available there for you to get, the license is there for you to get. So technically you should be able to go, like, but what we're facing out here is there's less and less tags and more people wanting to do it. It's not a land issue. I live in Arizona, 82%, something like that, 83 or more maybe percent public land. So there's a lot of places for me to go hunt, but the opportunity to go hunting is not there because I can't get the tag, can't draw, can't whatever. So that was part of it. Then some years ago, I started noticing how the anti-hunting world operated. And I started kind of like figuring out, I'm like, wow, man, they're always operating in the mainstream, right? And they're always doing a really good job of portraying hunters as a villain. And that was bothering me. So I wrote blogs about it. I got involved. I talked to a few people on my podcast about it, kind of went down this road. And I've always been the kind of person that if I see a hole that needs to be filled, I want to fill it, and I always want to provide the silver bullet, so to speak, for whomever it is. Like I want to find the answer so that can make it easy for everybody. Well, coupled with that, and then about 4 or 5 years ago, I decided part of the problem was us hunters, right? If not most of the problem was with us hunters as a whole. And I started this thing called the Hunter Up Initiative. And it was just me, standing on a soapbox, so to speak. It wasn't really like, I didn't put a whole lot of effort into it except for, and then I'll explain why. One of the things that I did was I reached out to like 20 or 30, I can't even remember now exactly, of the most influential people that I knew. And I said, hey, this is what I'm trying to do. The Hunter Up Initiative. I want hunters to start understanding that we're a community. We're not the bear hunters. We're not the lion hunters. We're not the deer hunters. We're not the duck hunters. We're not the, the pheasant hunters, the turkey hunter. We're all hunters. And it doesn't matter if we hunt with a bow or whether we hunt with a rifle or that we, that stuff doesn't, or if we wear Sitka camo or if you're a Kuiu guy or if you're, a scentlock guy, it didn't matter to me. Like what the message was is we need to start being good to each other because we're not, we're always the first person to bash on another hunter is usually a hunter, right? And then that we need to start focusing our efforts instead of arguing about all these stupid things that we debate about online and get into fights with and so on. It's to start taking that energy and putting it towards anti-hunting so that we can keep doing this forever. Well, I contacted all these guys and everybody was like, oh, that's a great idea. Da, 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 da. I'm like, okay. So I try to set up a Skype meeting. I'm like, okay, so let's get on here and we'll have like a little, virtual symposium, so to speak, and we'll discuss and see what we can do. And let's try to get, everybody on social media to dedicate at least 5% of what they do on social media towards, conservation, showing how, what we do, not just grip and grins, not just this, so got it. And everybody's like all on board for it. I shit you not a single person. Did I knock this out here? Can you still hear me? Because I can't. Sorry. Not a single person showed up for that meeting. And I was floored. Because a lot of these people were people that were basically touting how, beating their own chests about how much involved they are in conservation and this and that. And I'm like, I started having a conversation with one of them, and in so many words, he's like, there's really nothing in it for him. And I was like, there's nothing in it for you, man? Like your kids and your grandkids being able to hunt in the future, that's not something for you? Not having a better quality experience while you're hunting, that's not something, that's in it for you. So I started coming to realize that we needed to do something on a grander scale. Well, fast forward to last year, my partner Charles, he calls me up and he's like, hey, let's or no, excuse me, not let's. He said, let me show you this bill that came out. It's they're trying to ban bear hunting here in California. And he's like, I don't know what we could do about it. Him and I worked on something. He was really instrumental in another thing there in California, like 2016, about pig hunting. I'm like, let's start a change.org petition and get a bunch of signatures, and we'll, let the decision makers know where we stand on this. So we did that. And in 5 days, we got 27,000 people to sign the petition, and they donated like $18,000. So, man, we're like, wow, there's something to this. So we did it again in 2 more states with 2 more bills. And I'm like, this is awesome. This works. Grassroots, we're activating people. We're using our social media networks. We're, reaching out to all these people that we know, and it's easy for them. They're just spreading the word, right? And so, but the problem with it is, one, change.org is not really hunter friendly. 2, they're a for-profit organization. So all this money that we generated was just going to change.org. We generated like $30K between the 3 things that we did. And that wasn't money that we can use to put towards anything for hunting. It just went to change.org. So I told him, I'm like, listen, we need to start a change.org for hunters. So I went down this road and built his website, and quite frankly, it just sucked. And then he really got involved in it because living in California, all the politicians shut him down and he couldn't work. So he had a lot of time on his hands, and he developed Howl For Wildlife. So with that, we have the platform that we have today because of all that. It just kind of came from a million different directions. And so hopefully I answered the question.
Yeah. And it basically just saying, okay, so how do we look at the whole big picture and change it? And instead of essentially death by 1,000 cuts for us against the antis, rather the other way, and the way of saying, well, I could try these big 5 hammers to go out there and stand on their soapboxes too, but it wasn't beneficial for them to use their clout to help everybody when they wanted to help themselves. So it's like, okay, well then how can we as hunters help ourselves and we get the information out there? And when you say that the antis, they operate like in the mainstream, and when we talk about conservation, so conservation is one of those, I don't know, like in the podcasting world, like when you say it's situational, or all of these, like things that people kind of hate. Conservation has almost become like a derogatory term, I would say, because you have these huge in it for myself uh, influencers or whatever that want to use conservation. And I just want to use like the example, and I don't know whether it was good or bad, and maybe you have some information, but like when Mountain Dew was giving these influencers all of this money to drink Mountain Dew and make a post about conservation, you know, when you, and we look at some of the things where on the surface, it seems like they're doing something good to help, but maybe they're not using that money appropriately or whatever. So like, how do the antis operate in that underhanded manner?
Well, I mean, I can't speak for all the other organizations and how that stuff works, but I know it's a very dirty business all the way around on both sides, unfortunately. And I don't, and I like to think that it's not. I don't think that it's necessarily intentional on the hunting side. I don't think it's meant to be deceptive. It just, you know, for instance, organization A gets a bunch of free tags or whatever, and they raffle them off and they generate $1 million. And then they go apply for, you know, these different projects that they want to do with that $1 million. And those projects get declined. That money gets reabsorbed by the government. So the intention was there, but it didn't actually do what it was supposed to do. So all us well-intentioned people that donated to raffle tickets or try to buy into that auction, or the guy who, shelled out $450,000 for an elk tag in Utah or whatever, like their intentions are there, but it doesn't necessarily do what it's supposed to do. So that's a whole nother conversation that maybe you should have Sean Clarkston on or one of those guys on that talk about, because I know enough to be dangerous, and actually I know enough to be sick about it. I know one of the things that we're trying to do here at Howl is to not be that way. Yes, we're going to try to use some of them tools like for raffles and stuff like that, just because the hunting public understands that. They feel there's value in that they can put up $100 to get a chance to win a hunt of a lifetime or whatever. So yes, we might use that stuff, but the whole thing is our mission with the money that is being generated after operating costs, because this is not a very inexpensive endeavor. But after operating costs and paying, the people who need to get paid that are working for us, the money is going to go to that mainstream that we were talking about. So for years, for as long as I've been alive and before that, like if you look back at like Disney or whatever, Bambi came out. We're always villainized. We're always being portrayed in mainstream media, on TV, on movies, and like the news and so on and so forth as the villain. We're never. I mean, I don't know of any. If you know of a movie out there where there's a hunter in it that's, the hero, I can't think of one. There might be, but if there are, they're not very many. I always think back, and I made this example on several, interviews here, but there was a movie where Reese Witherspoon, and she's like hiking across the Oregon Trail or something along those lines. I should probably look it up because I don't remember it. I shut the movie off right after this part, so that's why I don't really remember what it was called or what it was about. But she's hiking across and she runs into two hunters, and these guys are elk hunters, and they're dressed kind of like you're right now, with like a flannel shirt and jeans and a hat, not what you would typically see nowadays, something from maybe the 60s or the 70s, probably, like for a hunter. We dress in camouflage now, right? And they both got frame packs on, and one of them's drinking a beer. First off, I'm going to tell you right now, if I go on an elk hunt, I'm probably doing 10 to 12 miles a day. There's no freaking way in hell I'm packing around a 6-pack in my backpack, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, that's bullshit right from the get-go. But the problem is the non-hunting public does, they don't know that. They don't even know what goes into a hunt, right? So they're how are they gonna look past that? They're not. The other thing is they portray these two guys as like super creepy. The whole time I'm watching this thing in my head, and I'm a hunter, is like, are these two guys gonna rape this girl? They're gonna rape this girl, aren't they? That's what's gonna happen right now. That's the whole like the whole time you're thinking that. And like I said, I shut it off. They may have later on, like, because they show that they kind of go off in a different direction. She kind of like, hurries up, scared off in another direction. So it might, but I shut it off. So I don't really know what happened, but that's the kind of crap we're dealing with. So what we want to do is we want to change that narrative. We want to start putting out, where they're putting out propaganda. We want to start putting out, things that are, we have truth, we have science, we have money, we have integrity, all this stuff backing us. Why aren't we putting that stuff out? Why are we not showing, the non-hunting public that we're not just a bunch of hillbillies riding around in trucks, drinking beer and shooting willy-nilly out of the back of a pickup? Like that is the common perception. Does some of that go on? Yeah. All right. There's just like in any niche, there's going to be that small percentage of people that are, not representative of what the whole population is, right? And you could say that about anybody. And
Certainly.
so the push to do that is what our goal is with the funding. Okay. Our main use and our main goals, I guess, are to get hunters all on the same page and to stop anti-hunting and anti-fishing policy before it even gets to a courtroom or before it even gets to a ballot. In some cases, like a lot of times it's just before a committee. We're like, what, 16 million hunters in North America. Okay. If, let's say, 10% of us, 1.6 million, were members of Howl For Wildlife, and every time a anti-hunting bill came up, that decision maker got 1.6 million emails saying, hey, we oppose this bill, we support science-based wildlife, please look into the negative sides of what would happen if you took this away. I can guarantee you right now, every politician would jump back from that bill like a ton of hot bricks or whatever. So that's the goal. The goal is to be able to be fast acting, to be able to eliminate a lot of this policy before it even gets to a point where we have to throw money at it, where we have to litigate, where we have to lobby, where we have to do, stuff like that costs lots and lots and lots of money.
So let's talk about that a little bit, where we had talked earlier about the lawmaking season or whatever. Like there's a time for open comment and other stuff. So like when these bills are coming up and being voted on and all of that stuff, like what is that process like, and how does what you're doing influence that?
So the crappy part is the process is different in every state, and it's different per how the person or organization that presented either a bill or a petition or a proposal, even how it was presented and who it was presented to. So one of the things that Howl has done is we've connected to every decision maker in the country and even in Canada. We haven't opened that up yet, but so for instance, here in Arizona, when we launched, the reason why we launched early was that there was a open comment period in the Arizona fishing game. And open comment period, they have one every year, but every 5 years, the fishing game here has a discussion, and they look at all the management laws, they look at all the rules and regulations, and they reassess everything. Are we going to keep everything status quo, or are we going to make a change? So when there's a comment period during this time, and let's say 1,000 anti-hunters send in an email that says, hey, we want you to get rid of mountain lion hunting. Now it gives cause for the commission to look into that, because now there's social science saying, I'm sorry if that might have been me. Social science saying that there's, 1,000 people that want to have lion hunting banning, and we haven't gotten it. You're not going to send an email, right? As a hunter, you're not going to send an email. Hey, I want to keep this hunting. I want to keep this hunting. I want to keep this. You don't do that. We're not proactively saying, hey, let's keep what we already have, right? We're not going out there. And if you don't know that there's somebody trying to take something away from you, you're not going. So this is a real sneaky tactic, right? Well, we got wind of it, that this was going on. So we put up an action on Howl For Wildlife, and we sent like 6,000 or 7,000 emails to Game and Fish Department, which basically they said, okay, well, there's way more support from hunters. This is not something we need to look at. Let's keep it status quo. So like there's that instance. Then it could be an actual bill. If it's an SB, it's a Senate bill. If it's an HB, it's a House bill. So if you see something like SB 116, that's, it's at the Senate. So you have to contact senators. And then usually they'll be sponsoring senators. And the sponsoring senators of the bills are the ones that Husis or PETA whispered in their ear and said, hey, this is going to make you look really good, because you're going to get, you're going to save cute and fuzzy bears in California, or whatever the case may be. Vermont, they were doing in bear hunting in Vermont as well. And so, as a politician, what politicians do is their goal is to look as good as they possibly can all the time. So they may not get all the information. That sucks, because there are policymakers, there are lawmakers. They should be really investigating everything, right? But unfortunately, at face value, it looks good. So our goal is, let's educate that person on wildlife conservation, give them the science that backs up why, if they took away mountain lion hunting or bear hunting, how it's going to affect all the other animals. And usually they're like, they back away from it, because they're like, oh, this is not going to make me look good. I'm going to kill off all these deer. I'm going to screw up the ecosystem, and I'm going to piss off a shit ton of hunters. So I'm not going to look good. It's not going to help me. Why should I endorse it? So, I don't know if I answered your original question. I started going around in circles, but
yeah, it was just how does it work, and like, when is it important? So, and I guess on the other side of that is like, how are you hearing about all of this stuff when it is the whisper of, like I said, they're not going to say like, hey, sign our thing to get rid of bear hunting. They don't want to, quote unquote, poke the bear. They would rather that they just told their buddies, and there was more of their emails than yours, right?
Exactly. It's almost always sneaky. If you read a lot of these bills, like right now, there's a bill that's trying to get put on the floor in Oregon that would literally make ranching, horseback riding, all hunting and fishing for certain, but even like neutering your dog would be illegal. Like it's like the complete extreme of, it's like a vegan world is what they're trying to push there. And I don't have nothing against vegans. Like that's a lifestyle. If you're doing it because you feel that eating plants is healthier for you, go for it. Like, or if it's not on you because you don't feel like you could take another life or enjoy stuff that comes from another life form, that's fine. That's your own thing. But like, they're really trying to impose their lifestyle on everyone over there. So, but it's a sneaky bill. If you read the bill at first glance, if you don't really read into it, you wouldn't see all this stuff. A lot of it sounds like, well, let me give you an example. So I keep using California because California is always under fire. they'll send out one of the things that they do is they'll present a potential sponsor, a congressman, whatever. They'll present them with survey data. They'll go do these surveys, and the survey will say, would you support killing a bear sow with cubs? No, of course you wouldn't. No hunter would even say yes, right? Would you, would you leave meat out in the, kill something, take the head and leave the meat? None of us would. Nobody's going to be in support of that, right? And they ask these things like this, and then they go and present to a congressman or potential sponsor of a bill, and they say, look, 70% of Californians are against trophy hunting. And they derive that 70% by saying, would you be in support of lopping off something's head and leaving the meat out in the field? They didn't come out and say, are you, you see, like that's the tactic there. They twist everything, and they take data and they make it into whatever they want to make it into, and they constantly pushing this crap out onto people who just don't know. So it's super sneaky. And the way we try to stay on, we can't stay on everything. We rely on state organizations. We're partnering with a bunch of state organizations, or we're developing liaisons in states that have their finger on the pulse. So we have, either an organization or a couple of guys or girls looking into the policy making for that state during policy season. So they inform us, they educate us on it. A lot of it, and unfortunately, is us just finding it and researching it and putting it up and doing what we got to do. And some of it's people contacting us. It's happening more and more on, Instagram or whatever. And we're getting emails from people saying, hey, were you aware of this thing going on in this state? And then we do the research and get on it. So hopefully that system will get a lot more sophisticated, and we'll be able to have our finger on the pulse of the whole country.
So what do you say to people? And I mean, it's a very ignorant view, but sometimes as hunters or people, we can be very apathetic. They say, well, I don't care what they do in Oregon because they're basically a different country. I don't support anything that they do. California, same way. I'm never going to hunt there. I probably will never go there. I don't like people from California. What does it matter to me? Arizona, I don't think I'm ever. I mean, he lives there. He can't even draw a tag. What makes me think that I'm going to be able to get one? Why should we care about those issues?
Right. Well, I mean, this is the big thing here. This is the big message is, like you said, why should a guy in, Michigan who whitetail hunts give a crap about a guy in New Mexico who elk hunts? Well, they're playing the long game, right? They're chipping away at hunter rights, and they're constantly going for the low hanging fruit, right? Things that they can push underneath the radar, right? And if you take away hunting in one place, so let's say they got away with getting lion hunting here in Arizona, they're going to go do it in Mexico, then they're going to go here, and eventually once they get lion hunting out of the way, they're going to come to your state and they're going to try to get, I don't know, usually in a place that's, well, Michigan's got, you guys got more than just whitetail. You guys got elk, you guys got other bear and all kinds of stuff. So they might go after bear hunting in Michigan. They might, they're doing it on the East Coast too. Like we're fighting stuff in Georgia and Vermont and other places right now too. So like it sets precedents. If they get it somewhere, it sets precedents for them to get rid of it somewhere else. But the other thing is, let's say I keep using California just because it's an easy target for everybody, right? Um, the let's say they got rid of bear hunting there. They got rid of bear hunting there. Eventually, the deer hunting herd is going to hurt so bad that we're not even going to have a huntable population there. So we're going to have to say there's no more deer hunting too. They might not have to have it. They might not have to have it removed, and we might have to remove it ourselves. And we're all donating into the same, going back to your original question, we're all donating into the same pot here. We're all in this together because all our funds go to a national federal, a federal fund that gets distributed to all the states. So whether you like it or not, you are connected to the guy that's in Oregon. You are connected to the guy that's in New Mexico. And like, I mean, I don't know. It's a hard thing. And I've had a really good speech about it, and I've given it a million times, but I almost feel like I shouldn't have to say this to people. Like it should be obvious to you. Like I feel like it's just important that when the guy in California knows you stood up for him and something comes up in your state, he's going to stand up for you. It's like that old thing from the Bible, they came for me, they came for, whatever it is, and you didn't stand up for me. And now that person's no longer there for you. Because what happens if I love, mountain lion hunting, and that's all I do. I'm a mountain lion hunter, right? And they take away mountain lion hunting in Arizona. Now I don't hunt anymore, right? I took my passion, and now I'm a mountain biker. I go out in the woods and I mountain bike. That's my thing. Now there's one less person, one less voice to stand up for what you believe in. There's one less person contributing into the industry as a whole. Like those are the reasons. Like it should be obvious. Unfortunately, it's not, but it should be obvious. We're all in this together. And if we want to keep on doing it and keep on enjoying what we enjoy now, you have to be mindful of that. You have to be involved and activated. People hate that word activism or being an activist has always been associated with the other side, with the super liberal, the super anti-hunting, anti everything. So, but the real thing is like that. The real case is that you have to be activated. You have to be active. If you sit down and sit on your hocks and wait for things to happen, they're not going to happen. You have to be an active person involved in whatever it is that you're passionate about. Otherwise, it may not be there. You can't rely on it still being here. I mean, one of the reasons why we still exist as an industry is because of greed. I put it that way because it's, polarizing, but it's the truth. Is the hunting industry generates so much money on so many different levels, and there's so many little tendrils that come off of it, leading out to truck sales and ATV sales. Like, how many people do you know that own a truck probably wouldn't own a truck if they didn't go hunting, right? Stuff like that. And so the government as a whole tolerates us because of that, because there's so much money. But if you take that money equation out, like they've been trying to figure out ways to substitute the funding that comes out of hunting and fishing to, substitute it with something else so that we're no longer relevant. That goes away. Guess what? Ciao, ciao. See you later. There is no more going to Walmart, picking up a tag and, going in the back nine and shooting a deer. That will not exist anymore. Everything will be privatized. If you want to go hunting, it'll be like the other countries in the rest of the world.
Mm.
Well, us and Canada and I think Australia, I think are the only places that have public land to go hunting.
So on the other side of that, and I don't know the answer to this, so maybe it's not as big of an issue, but I doubt it because I think it sways the scales one way or the other. But how much have we as hunters been able to get overturned or returned to us on things that have been taken away?
Not a whole lot.
Right. And so, I mean, that might be simply the answer to the question, is that it isn't that we should, that you have to care about that guy or that hunter or whatever, but once it's gone away, they don't give it back. So if you ever thought that you may want to do anything anywhere, and like you said, it's used as a precedent for, look at this model that we did in California. It's so great. And now that guy's politician's son is now in Michigan or PA or Missouri.
Exactly.
And, this is what we're going to do. And, we've done a great job there. Now we're going to show how well we can do it here. And as much as us as hunters would say that's bullshit, we would also say, and I've heard it and I've probably said it, like, well, what can we do? I mean, because they're politicians, they're going to do whatever they want to do. And, they got elected by somebody, and now,
There is a little truth to that, but in the reality, as we go back to the conversation we had earlier, is that politicians are going to do whatever makes them look the best.
mm-hmm.
So if you're the squeakiest wheel and you're showing the most, interest in a subject, they're going to want to try to make you happy because it's going to make them look better. Simple as that. And, what Hal's done, we've made it easy for people to just go and take, so it doesn't take much from your time. Like it takes not even a minute, 45 seconds to go on the action center and say, put my name, my phone or my email address and my zip code. And I hit a button and boom, in 30 seconds, I just did more for wildlife than I ever did. And I just did more for hunting and fishing than I ever did. And, I mean, I'm generalizing that, but it's, I don't know. I think it's really important that we just think cohesively, think holistically, think, as one, and not be so that doesn't affect me, because eventually it will affect you.
Right. And so a couple of things. One, does it matter, or can we say unequivocally that it doesn't matter where you live or where I live? So if I write a public statement through Howl, because I've done it and I've gone on there, and it is extremely easy. I mean, it is just as he says, you put in your email address and you click the button and it sends, right? But does it matter, because you said you put in your zip code, that I'm commenting on something in California or Arizona or Wyoming or Montana, and you're shaking your head no? Why does it not matter?
It doesn't matter. Well, for one, the zip code thing is, we use the zip code only if you are from the zip code. So the emails they're getting, number one, they don't know that you're in Michigan and you're commenting on a California. They just know that you're a hunter. This is your name. They don't even know if you're a constituent in or not. So that part, it doesn't matter. But the other thing is, we are all able to hunt in other states. I hunt all over the country. I mean, last year alone, I was in Florida, I was in New York, I was in Utah, Idaho, California, and my home state of Arizona. Right. And because you go to these other states and because you spend money in these other states, you're important. Even though you might not be directly voting for that politician, you are important because you are bringing revenue and you have a say in to an extent in everything. So it doesn't, to answer your question, it does not matter if you are from, Florida and you're voting on something in Washington. It doesn't matter. We're not voting, but sending an email or voicing your opinion, it does not matter.
Okay, so then on the other side of that, where we say, okay, I got to give these guys my email address. What are they doing with it? What is their underhanded underlying thing? They're asking for, donations. If you can donate, like, where's the transparency? What's happening with all of this information that I'm giving them? Like, where do they stand to gain from it, being Howl as the organization?
So your email, once you've taken an action and become a user, not a member, but if you become a user by taking an action, you're asked when you do it, can we inform you of other upcoming issues? So that email is used for us internally, where we can send you information as other bills come up. We need your help with this one. We need your help with this one. So you will get emails every time a new action is posted, or you can opt out of that. It's up to you. As a member, right now, our free membership, we have a free membership, and we will have a paid membership here too, but the details haven't been worked out on it yet. So, but the free membership, your name, your email, all that stuff stays. We don't, just go back to what you're asking. We don't sell it. We don't use it for anything else. We don't try to market to you. We do have partners that we do work with. So if, again, this is an opt-in thing, you don't have to opt in for it, but if you opt in for it, you might get an email that says, hey, because you're a Howl for Wildlife supporter or member, you can save 20% off with something else. Like that kind of stuff. Yeah, you might get something like that. But for the most part, you're not going to receive, newsletters from us or, constant spam. It's always going to be either about there being another action, or another build that we need help with, or we might have, like, for instance, one of the things that we're doing now is we started educating hunters. So in the past, when there's a meeting, 2 hunters would show up and then like 100 anti-hunters would show up. The anti-hunters would show up and they would be all very organized, very well equipped to give testimony and influence the decision makers. And then we'd have 2 guys that were passionate and they would stand up and be like, I'm a hunter, don't take away my hunting rights. And, I'm an American and you're going against what America is about. And so that's all important, of course, but it doesn't sway the decision makers. So one of the things we're doing, and I'm sorry to get away from your thing because things keep popping up and I want to tell you about them, is we're creating like a Zoom meeting, and you go on the Zoom meeting and you get educated. Okay, this is the bill, this is the process, this is the hot points, and this is the science that backs it. So if you're going to get up and testify, you go up there and you can speak intelligently and give something that will. So we just have a meeting in Washington, and we had 65, 70 hunters or something like that show up, and all were in the Zoom meeting and all gave excellent testimony, and we blew the 20 some odd anti-hunters that showed up out of the water. So, and the reason why I'm telling you all this is we've done is, as a member, we've incentivized everything. So if you become a member, even with a free membership, every time you take an action, you are assigned a certain amount of points. And those points, once you reach a certain threshold of points, you get put in automatically for like a drawing or something like that to win something from one of our sponsors, one of our, not, I shouldn't say sponsor, no sponsors, partners, that are giving, gifts away. We just gave away like a trip, whitewater rafting trip, stuff like that. And sorry, I went off the the deep end over here. With your question was, do we do anything with your emails and stuff like that? No. And the funding, I already kind of went over that. Our plan is with the funding is to use that for education and mainstream media, to buy billboards in downtown San Francisco, in LA, that shows infographics of hunters and conservation and stuff, and start helping change the narrative. Sorry, you said something, I started going down a road within. I was like, oh, I got to tell about this stuff too. But
so how is that being tracked, or how could people but where's the transparency, like in the funding type stuff? So like, if I want to say like, all right, I'm going to donate X amount of dollars, like where did they go? What billboards did they do? And then what actions have been what bills have been, taken off the ballot or whatever? Like where's the reporting for everything?
So for the bills, the ones that we win, we haven't lost one yet, except for one in Vermont, which we were asked to back away from a state organization. They said they have it covered, and we backed off, and we lost. But okay. Other than that, you can see, generally we make posts on social media and stuff like, hey, we won this bill or whatever. But you can go in your as a member, you can look at this. Not as a non-member, you can't. But as a member, you can go in and look at your. I have to look on the website and see what we have it called now, because he just changed it. But I believe it's called your activity. So if you look at your activity, you can see what you've what actions you've participated in, and if they're still active or not, and if they've been won, it'll say that we've won them. That's that. As far as funding and seeing where all this stuff goes, we're still working a lot of that out. We were originally going to be a for-profit organization, and somewhere in that process, we were like, well, let's become a 501c3, because we might be able to do more with the money. And then somewhere in that process, we found out that once you're involved in politics and policy, more than 25% of your efforts are towards that, you can't be a 501c3. So right now we are a nonprofit organization, and I'm not the guy to talk to about this. I don't know exactly, but we're trying to figure that out. We're trying to figure out where and how we could do the most good. And once we figure that out, then we can have the reporting the way we need to have it. So we're still meeting. We're still having meetings with different lawyers and so on and so forth to figure out, because we don't want to get in trouble right now. I don't want to cut this off at the knees before it even really gets going. It's 5 weeks now, 6 weeks, 6 weeks, January 11th that we launched, and we launched prematurely because of that Arizona mountain lion ban that I was talking about. I rushed it. I called up Charles. I'm like, hey, we need to go now. I said, I know we don't have all our ducks in a row we had everything on the technology side done. The website was operating perfectly. Everything on that side is 100% running on all cylinders. But the inner workings of the company, we didn't have all that worked out yet. So I apologize, and I'm sure that sounds shady to people, but I mean, I can assure you that I'm not doing this to get rich. And I don't want to talk about numbers on the podcast, but the website costs a ridiculous amount of money to build. It costs a ridiculous amount because of the platforms that we have to be connected to all the decision makers in the country, and to be able to have the CRM and all this other stuff. So some people might understand what that means. it's all based on how many people you have, and the more people that come on, the more expensive it is. And to give you an idea, it costs like about $10,000 a month to run. So we're not making that kind of money. You know, we've already got up to 16,000 members, and a lot of people have donated. There's been a lot of people involved, but it's nowhere near what we've put out. Not even 10% of what we put out. So to give you an idea.
Yeah. So, and again, it's just simply, everybody, it seems like today, has an angle. Yep. So if you're, if it turns out that the angle is 100% what you say it is, and it's all about like moving the needle on keeping hunting at the very least the way that it is, and not regressing and not losing any ground. Yep. And it isn't that you've got this big financial backer that's, taking all of the money that you come in, and that's money taken away from hunting, and that money's going into anti-hunting. You know what I mean? Like,
listen, I understand your skepticism, and I understand that you asking that question, because there's a lot of that going on. There's so much of that going on. This is 100% funded by, and almost entirely by Charles, my partner. But it's funded by the both of us. We have done it, and we've continued monthly are the ones funding it until we get to a point where there's money coming in, enough money coming in to pay for all of it. So again, forgive me for not having that, and plus, I don't know if that's something even if I did have, I think we should air in front of everybody, but there will be, if we are a 501c3, it'll be just like anybody else. It'll be public record. You should be able to go on there and figure it out. But I think there's a lot of mistrust that has come from, and I don't want to name names. There's been several organizations in the last few years, especially, but even some of the old ones that have been around, there's a lot of shenanigans that goes around. And it's because it's a very political thing. And in politics, there's a lot of shenanigans, period. That's why we're trying to make it as streamlined and as clean as possible, so that there isn't that BS. Like, I don't want to be like, organization A or B. I want us to be able to affect change. I want us to be able to quickly interact with issues at hand. I want us to be able to tie everybody into one community, so that we're all one, and we're not, all these divided, niches within the hunting industry. And I want to be able to educate the non-hunting public on what it is that we do. I want them to understand that we're not Elmer Fudd. We're not, toothless hillbilly shooting drunk out of the back of a truck. Like, that's the goals, and the direction is very clear. And I think if we stick to all that, it should be really easy for people to want to get on board and support it, and be able to see that it's not, a money. It's, I know, I get it. It's hard. You look at, again, I don't want to name drop, so I'll name drop on the other side. Let's look at Hughes's. You look at Hughes's, the freaking CEO makes $800,000 a year. I mean, is that a reasonable, when you're a 501c3, it's supposed to be a reasonable compensation? Is that reasonable compensation for, I don't, but that happens on our side too. So yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Like, and this, I don't want it to come across as I'm like putting you on the spot and saying like, hey man, like what the hell? But at the same time, it's like people are going to be listening, and they're going to be like, well, it all sounds like too good to be true. Like, where's the rub? You know what I mean? Like,
of course. I'm from Brooklyn. I think everything's got a rub, you know. I'm guilty until proven innocent. I'm all about that, and I understand it. So, um, I think I take for granted that I expect people to take it that it's me saying it, but you don't
Mhm.
know who I am, right?
Right.
And but the people who know me and know how much I've been involved in my whole life in and how like one of the other things is that going around I keep seeing like threads coming up as us being possibly anti-hunting. Like um yeah, I don't know. Does that look anti-hunting to you? Like but anyway, yeah, I just I get where you're coming from, you know. So
Yeah. And like I say, like for myself, I've obviously like went on there, poked around, looked at everything that I can. And for what I've seen, it ends up being exactly what it seems. But that's what it always is until you're like, wait a minute, that doesn't make any sense. Like
yeah.
all the volunteers are doing all the work and they're paying money. Like it, you know,
Right.
where's all this money being allocated? So, and I understand that you guys are like new to this and the almost the lack of information doesn't necessarily read to me as anything other than like you seem like vulnerable, right? So you're like, oh shit, I didn't know. Like I don't know the answer, which is better than saying like, well, Charles takes care of all that, and you know, it'll come out later. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Oh, no, I get where you're coming from. Yeah, I wish I knew all the ins and outs of this, or maybe I'm blissfully happy that I don't know all the ins and outs of this. Um, but I do know if we have a goal, and hopefully I spell those out for you guys well enough. But and we're going to continue to do what's necessary to reach those goals. You
Okay.
know,
So where can people follow along, or like if they want to check it out, if they want to try to vet some of this, if they want to check on like what's going on in their state, if there's anything going on, like where can people find you, find if they have questions or if they just want to go and sign up, all of that stuff.
yeah, you can go to Howl HOWL for wildlife FOR wildlife.org, and you go to the action center. There's I believe 6 or 7 actions. Some of them are pro hunting. We're also about promoting the pro hunting ones. Um, if you don't, if you want to kind of get more involved and you want to find out, look, look in your state and look and see if there is any bills being proposed right now that are anti-hunting or pro-hunting, and reach out to us on Instagram. Is probably the best place. It's howl underscore org, I believe it is. Let me see. Let me look that up for you. Or you can just get a hold of me, John Stallone. That's nice and easy to remember. Um, the Yeah, it's howl underscore org is the handle on Instagram. Just you could send over there if you've come across a bill that's you know not necessarily just anti-hunting, but it's going to go against the conservation model, the North American wildlife conservation model, and that's our main focus is to promote anything that's science-based wildlife management and and basically pro hunting and pro fishing. So
Okay. Well, awesome. I appreciate you coming on and having the chat with us. And uh, like uh, like I said, I've tried to figure out a way for us as a podcast to do better about dealing with some of this stuff. But it does always seem such like a huge undertaking and like I don't know, very somewhat messy, to say the least. So I appreciate what you guys are doing and the manner in which you've made it easy to navigate.
no, I mean that was the goal, and I appreciate the kudos on it. we've we've really worked hard to make it as easy and to take away those obstacles that would prevent well-intentioned people from doing the right thing.
Awesome. Well, thanks, man.
No, thank you.